Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have a returning guest. Very excited to have Superintendent Novotny from Salado ISD. So we will kick things off here in just a second. Before we kick things off, we do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact's giving away hundreds of millions of dollars to public education in the form of a free gift. So if your district needs unrestricted funds, reach out to Ideal Impact. Superintendent Novotny, thanks for joining us again this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I know not everybody has heard the previous interview we did, so let's just start off with your background. Share a little bit about your background again, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I'm a former Yankee from Minnesota. Lived up there 24 years. Started my education career up there as a teacher assistant for special education and a cross country and track coach, and then made the move down to Texas. Spent 12 years in a very large district in the Plano Independent School District as a special ed teacher, special ed team leader, special education coordinator, and then a high school assistant principal and high school principal. Then got my first superintendent gig in a little district called Moulton ISD. It's only 300 kids. I was there for 3 years. And now this is my 14th year as superintendent in Slado ISD.
Wow. Wow. Okay. 14 years. So that's very cool. I imagine over the past 14 years, you've seen a lot. There's been a lot's happened. Tell us about kind of what's happened from the time you started up until now, some of the exciting things that have happened.
Sure. Well, and actually, yeah, the prior to my tenure here, the longest serving superintendent in Salado ISD history was Dr. Robin Battershell, who was 10 years in Salado and then went on to do 10 years in Temple ISD. So I broke her record over 3 years ago now. So I'm the longest running, and superintendent years are kind of like dog years, so I've earned these gray hairs here, for sure. But no, it's been a great run. Just great kids in our district, outstanding employees, parents, community members, just a great community that, I've certainly had opportunities to go out to other districts if I had wanted to do that, but I really love Salado and just love our school district and our kids and community here. And so I've decided some years ago that this is my last stop as superintendent, and this is where I'll retire from someday. But yeah, we've had a lot of accomplishments. We've won some state championships and a lot of different things. Academics. In fact, we've won a total of 9 state championships in UIL academics.
Wow.
2 of which while I was here, and there's almost 1,400 high schools in the state of Texas, 1A through 6A, and there's only 2 that have won more state championships in Texas in UIL academics than Salado has. So we won a couple of those, won a couple one act play state championships, boys golf, girls golf, filmmaking, speech and debate. Had a lot of success, for our kids. And we've won two Lone Star Cups while I was here, and there was another Lone Star Cup they won the year before. Are you familiar with what Lone Star Cups are?
No. Go ahead.
So it's really the highest award for academics, athletics, and fine arts. It's awarded by the UIL, University Interscholastic League, that oversees all the activities for Texas public schools, and they award points based on how well you do in each of these activities. So, for example, in a team sport, if you qualify for playoffs, you get 2 points. If you win your district championship, you get 2 points. And then every round of playoffs you win, you get 2 more points. In individual sports, you get points if you make it to state as a team and get in the top 5. You get 10, 8, 4, 6, 2 points. Academics, you win points for regional championship and then top 5, et cetera, et cetera. And so we won a Lone Star Cup back in 2008 before I was here, and then 2013, 2014. Those are the 2 years and so there's only I'm trying to think of how many. I've got the statistics here. There's 1,391 high schools in the state of Texas, public high schools. Only 48 have ever won a single Lone Star Cup. We're one of those 48. And there's only 13 that have won more than the 3 Lone Star Cups that we've won here in Salado. So again, our kids have been very, very successful. We've added some activities for our kids. We've added wrestling and team tennis, and we've added swimming and diving. So as of a couple of years ago, we had every sport the UIL offered. We did not offer. They added water polo a couple of years ago. We decided not to add water polo, so that's the one sport we don't have. We've also offered additional opportunities for college credit. Now there's 4 ways our kids can earn college credit: dual credit through Temple College, on-ramps through University of Texas, the Texas Bioscience Institute through Temple College, and in advanced placement or AP classes. So our kids get a lot of college credits before they go on and graduate and go on to university as well. So yeah, it's been a great and we passed 2 bond elections. One back in 2018 that built a new middle school, new baseball, softball, tennis courts, and then we passed another bond just this past November that we're building a new high school and a new stadium, and we're going to convert our current high school into an elementary, and then do a new elementary as well. So lots of facility work going on as well in our district, well, because we're a growing district enrollment wise.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, you must be growing with as much activities going on there. So what do you think's contributing to the growth? Is it because of I mean, I'm sure it's a combination of things to a certain extent, but you'll have a lot of success in the district. Is there other things outside the district that is driving the influx of, increase in population? Or
Yeah, great question. I would say 3 things. One, Texas as a state is growing, of course. 2, within Texas, that growth is really centered along I-35 and in the Houston area. If you're out in West Texas, Panhandle, even some East Texas, those enrollments actually are declining, population declining. But if you're on I-35 and or in the Houston area, there's definitely growth there. And then in Central Texas here, I'd like to say that our success as a district has, people moving into our area. A lot of them pick Slado ISD as a kind of a destination district where they want to have their kids enrolled. So a lot of the realtors tell me when families contact them, they're looking for, Slado ISD schools for their kids.
with so many people coming into Texas from everywhere, right? There's a lot going on. Um, have you noticed any changes in like the community and then or the district and feedback or decisions being made and that sort of thing, just because of like things are changing, right?
Yeah, probably the biggest change for us is that when I got here 13, 14 years ago, it was primarily a retirement community. A lot of retirees, a very high percentage of people 65 and up. And we still have a sizable number of those folks, but the vast majority of the growth we've been getting the last 13, 14 years have been younger families. And so definitely a demographic shift for us in terms of younger families and kids in the district now too. So that's been a significant difference for us over those years.
Very interesting. No, that's so, yeah. And when you look at Slado IC, you guys have what, 2,000 students total in the district, somewhere around there, 2,300?
2,400, correct.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it's just amazing with it's a smaller district, but you guys have done some amazing things, right? With all these awards that you're winning. And um what so what are you seeing happening right now in public education? I know we talked previously, like, and things are always changing, right? You have it's perspectives, it's leadership, it's everything kind of changes everything, especially when people are involved. So what's happening right now? What's a trend, or what are you focused on related to public ed right now?
Sure, I'll give you my top 3. Number 1, school funding. Number 2, school funding, and number 3, school funding. Those are definitely the top 3. Our state is unfortunately one of the, although I love Texas and love our area here, it is one of the lowest funded states regarding public education. Last statistic I saw is that we're number 44 out of 51, because you include the District of Columbia as one of the states there. And so, our average funding in Texas, the last statistic I saw, was $9,871 a kid for just looking at state and local funding only, not the federal funding. And that compares to the national average of $12,612 per student. So we are $2,741 below the national average in Texas. And just that that amount per kid times even my small district of 2,400 kids, that would be over $6.5 million more per year that my district would be receiving in funding if we were just at the national average. And so it's getting more. And I will say, in my 17 years as a superintendent, the most challenging thing every year is trying to provide an outstanding education on a limited budget. And then, of course, the last session, the legislature had about a year and a half ago when they met, because they meet, of course, they meet in odd number of years, from January to May. So when they met back January through May of 2023, about a year and a half ago, there was over a $30 billion surplus that a lot of that money could have gone to public education. And our state representative actually here in Bell County in Slado ISD is Dr. Brad Buckley. Great legislator, great guy, great champion of public education. He filed a bill that would have put in $7 billion of that $30+ billion surplus into public education. And he also happens to be the chair of the House Public Education Committee, so that's a critical position. So he got that bill past his committee, the House Committee for Public Ed. Then it went to the whole House, all 150 members, and they passed it. Unfortunately, then next step, of course, it has to go over to the Texas Senate. The Texas Senate would not approve it because they would not approve more funding for public education unless they got private school vouchers approved. And so that bill died. Well, then Dr. Buckley tried again, filed another bill for the funding, and this time with a voucher, a limited voucher, private school voucher bill to try to appease the Texas Senate. Well, unfortunately, the Texas House wouldn't approve it because, the legislature have been trying for, some in the legislature have been trying for decades to do, private school vouchers. Well, the Senate has been in favor of it for many, many years. The House has never been in favor of it. And once again, last session, it did not get approved by the House. And so once again, that $7 billion just went nowhere. It's just went back into the rainy day fund balance for the state. And so we got no additional funding per student. And so I know my district is a deficit of about $1.25 million this year. All the districts in my county, there's about 10 districts in Bell County. Every single one of those districts has a deficit budget. The majority of the districts in my region, there's 77 districts in my Waco region, they have deficit budgets. And I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty confident that the majority of the districts in the state of Texas also have a deficit budget. And we can do that for a year. We have about a $5 million fund balance, so we can take that 1.25 million out of, but that's not sustainable. And so if the legislature doesn't come through for us this coming spring, there will be significant cuts for statewide in all districts. And again, the good news is they've already projected a $21 billion surplus for the state of Texas for this next biennium that the legislature will have to work with this upcoming session, which again meets in January through May of 2025. If they will, I know Dr. Buckley is committed again to filing another bill to get us that funding. I just hope this time the House and the Senate will reach an agreement and approve the funding this time around.
Is that because the House is, not for vouchers and the Senate is for vouchers? So, no matter which way you squeeze the balloon, it's like you can't win.
Yes. And it's interesting because you've got a Republican majority in the House, a Republican majority in the Senate. You've got a Republican lieutenant governor, Republican governor, Republicans, across the board. The difference is I've in my 28 years in Texas here, I've seen is that the House is a much more moderate Republican group versus the Senate is a much further right, Republican group. And so again, the Senate for multiple sessions now have been in favor of private school vouchers. The House has not been. Now, what'll be interesting this upcoming session is, the governor campaigned in primary elections against certain incumbents that voted against the vouchers the last time. And he was able to flip, I think, about 6 of those seats by getting incumbents voted out in the primary elections and putting in place the people he campaigned for, which are pro vouchers. So I think he may have the votes this time around in the House to also get vouchers approved. I'll talk about vouchers in a minute too. A lot of pro public education or public education supporters are anti-voucher. I'm somewhere, just like most things in life, I'm somewhere in the middle of that. I could actually get behind vouchers as long as there's a couple guardrails in place with that. They keep talking about vouchers in terms of school choice or parental rights and things. The bottom line is parents already have rights and parents already have school choice. The different, because you already can put your kids in public school or private school or homeschool or charter school. All those choices exist. In fact, Texas is one of the most, if not the most, parental rights in terms of private school and homeschool than any state that I know of. If you put your kid in a homeschool situation, there is no state oversight in that, no state accountability that, other states, you have to submit your curriculum or even take the state test. Texas is very hands off on that. So as a parent, if you want to homeschool, that's great. You have that right, and you can. And the state will not get involved. If you go to private school, the state will not get involved. But the question is, so those rights already exist, and that school choice already exists. The question is, who should pay for those school choices? And if the goal of vouchers it is to help families that can't afford those choices, because admittedly there are some families that can't afford private school. If that's the case, I could get behind that. I could support that actually. However, if it's going to be a universal situation where everybody can get a voucher, no matter regardless of your income level, I can't support that because for a couple of reasons. One, I don't see why taxpayers, including low income taxpayers that have to pay still sales tax and property tax, why they should be supporting private school tuition for families making hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year. That doesn't make sense to me, number one. Number two, for again, a Republican majority, House, Senate, governor, lieutenant governor, that does not seem like a conservative approach to me to add billions of dollars to the state budget, billions of dollars of taxpayer funds paying this. Because here's the difference. If it's limited to low income families, then the families that that will be taking advantage of this will be ones already in public school, and they can switch out to private school. And although the individual districts may lose some funding through that because we'll lose our weighted average daily attendance, we also then will have less students then, and we'll then need less teachers and adjust our budgets accordingly. But it won't cost the state any more money because all you're doing is taking that funding that would have gone to the public school and switching it over to a private school situation. However, if it becomes a universal situation where anybody can get a voucher, even wealthy families, that's going to be, now the state is paying for private school for kids that their families have been paying, parents have been paying for in the past. And that will be adding billions of dollars to the state budget and billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars funding that. And that wouldn't have, been in a burden on the budget in the past. And even though the money is there now, because again, last session we had $30 billion surplus, this upcoming session, 21 billion surplus, there will be a time down the road, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, I don't know when, but I'm using even number of years because that's when the legislature meets, that the state will be short. Because I remember that when in 2011, that was my first year in Salado, the state was $20 billion short that year. And that they had a $20 billion deficit. So what do? They cut public education by $5.4 billion the next biennium. So that is my fear, is that if they do vouchers and allow wealthy families to take advantage of it, then now the state is picking up that burden, and it's gonna really hurt the state budget down the road. The other guardrail, so one, it should be really limited to low income, and over 60% of the kids in the state of Texas qualify for free reduced lunch. And so you could have 61% of the kids could qualify that way, but just not the 39% that can already afford private school. And then the other guardrail that should be in place is accountability, that there are some great private schools out there, and there are some not very good private schools. The difference is public schools, we have academic accountability, financial accountability. We know how those schools are doing. If billions of dollars of taxpayer dollars are going to these private schools now without any accountability, we'll have no way what kind of return on investment. Some of those dollars will be well spent at good private schools, helping kids, others not so much, and we won't know which are which, not only on the academic accountability side, but on the financial accountability side as well. And so those are the two guardrails. I know I went off on a big soapbox there, but those are the two guardrails. I think that and I do think the legislature probably will approve vouchers this coming session in the spring, because again, the governor campaigned and flipped enough those Republican House seats in the primary. But I just hope that one, they limit it to based on income to not overburden the state budget, and two, that they put accountability in place in that as well. So.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, such a big topic. And I know we interview some districts from Oklahoma as well, and they've passed the they got vouchers there. And it's interesting, some of the districts say, students will leave but then come back
Yeah.
because and I would like to think that if it were passed, that they would have some sort of metrics to track, just like they do public ed, right? They're dealing with, if it's taxpayer dollars, you would
Yes.
think that they would put the guardrails there.
I hope so. Yeah, a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense, right? Well, so I know we're running short on time here, and you're a very busy man. Last question, and we asked this question before. Any other leaders in your life that, if you were to recommend, one leader that comes to your mind, who would it be to come on the podcast?
There are so many great superintendents in Texas and colleagues that I know. One in particular I mentioned is Neil Jeter. He is superintendent of Troy ISD here in my county. And he and I have been the two longest superintendents here in our county. I actually started just a month before he did. I started June 1 of 2011. He started July 1 of 2011. And just a great guy, you know, outstanding leader. He'd be a great one to interview as well. He's a fantastic guy and a fantastic superintendent. Been doing it a long time. So
Awesome. Awesome. Yes, we'll have to reach out to him. And just want to thank you again for being on the podcast today.
oh, my pleasure. Hey, thanks for your support of public education.
Absolutely. I think we're over 80 episodes now. For those that have been tuning in, hopefully you got some inspiration. If you're part of a smaller district, hopefully you got some inspiration from all the great things that are happening over at Slado ISD, and also have some new context around vouchers, because it's a lot going on with that. And obviously with our sponsor, we do want to give one final shout out to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. If your district needs unrestricted funds for higher teacher salaries or whatever your district needs, reach out to Ideal Impact. And for those that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.
Thank you.